Ayo variants, founders, claws, and everything in between, welcome to the existence. Midnight Society have just dropped a video on their Twitter of the doc talking about some of the details of the expansion, alongside a letter addressed to the variants from Rob, variant 402, the studio head at Midnight Society. And for those of you that haven't been keeping up with DEADROP and haven't been digging into much of what Midnight Society's been up to, I'm going to be going through some of the huge things I think are coming in Snapshot 5. Right, let's address the elephant in the room. For those of you that are returning, I am now an egg. Yes, I'm bald as fuck. I have a slap head, I have a massive forehead, I'm Dr. Eggman, whatever you want to call me. I'm going to give you a minute here to get it out of your system and chat some shite in the comments if you want to, or just have a laugh, or freeze frame and draw crap all over my head. Get out your system and let's move on with the video. Thank you. So starting with some of the details of the letter, the first thing I wanted to point out was that this entire year has been dubbed the year of expansion. And I feel like that's symbolizing not only the game itself expanding, becoming bigger, and us taking our first steps into a refiner state, and obviously the refiner state getting bigger and bigger and bigger with every snapshot, but I also feel it's a pretty safe bet to say that it's going to be expanding the existence itself. When I say expanding the existence itself, I'm looking at this specific last paragraph in the letter, which says it's time to activate your visor cortex and protect it from a rush of new claws on the hunt to acquire your chip for their collection. For those of you that don't know, claws are the human faction that infiltrate the refiner states, and variants are a sort of special class of claw who don the visor cortexes. In world, they are claws, they're just ones that wear visor cortexes, they're like a different class of claw. In the real world, that pretty much means claws are the average players, variants are founders who have paid for a founder's pass to Midnight Society and have got their visor cords. So I feel like with that, that's a pretty safe bet to assume that when they say new claws, that means there's going to be some open playtime at minimum for some people to jump in and try out DEADROP. The last piece of information that I really want to pick out of the letter is that they've told us the name of the first sector. So the first sector is going to be called Cold Storage, which is Sector 3. And as they've said a few times and kind of hinted at, every sector is supposed to feel unique and have its own style and theme to make it feel like its own piece of the tower rather than it all melding together. So I feel like that kind of gives us a little bit of playroom to imagine what this sector is going to look like and start picturing what we imagine cold storage is going to be. So moving on to the video, I'm not going to play the whole video here. It's readily available on Twitter if you want to sit through all of it. I'm just going to pick out the points that I want to focus on. And the first is just to start the video. Doc is talking about how previously we've had the short iterative releases of the snapshots, which have been building out the foundation of what DEADROP is, like the mechanics, constant sort of like balancing and changes to the movement system, adding in small bits and bobs, and really focusing on just the core playability of the game. Obviously, this is now a year into this system and they're looking to change that. So we're going to be moving on from the short 6-week lead times for snapshots onto what seems to be about 3 months between snapshots, which is going to allow for snapshots to be much bigger in terms of what they can change and the scope of what they can expand on inside of DEADROP. Obviously, with a 6-week lead time, there is a limited amount of time that they can implement new features and things. Obviously, with 3 months, there's a lot more they can include. We can get much bigger features, we can get much bigger changes, and just make for a more exciting development process between snapshots. One of the first big features Doc spoke about us getting, and he used it as an example, is armor and helmet system, which it's a wicked system, and you know, it was only a matter of time before it came in. It's going to affect the game in quite a huge way. It's adding more to the pre-raid preparation, and I feel like that's a lot of what DEADROP needs right now. Is that at the moment, you know, you kind of slap on your weapon and you know, it's not too high risk, high reward. You know, you don't have to think about too much what you're doing. You kind of, everyone's dropping in equal. With the addition of armor and helmets, that changes a bit. It's giving you more to prepare with when you drop in. You know, you've got to think about whether other people are going to have them. What's the likelihood of other people having them? There's also the aspect of looting those items, how you acquire them from inside the refiner state. You know, they're going to take up a heck of a lot of space compared to some stuff. So you're going to have to start managing your inventory more and more and more. And for variants, this is a monumental change to DEADROP. This is going to be our first chance to have our visor cortexes in game. This is going to be the first time we can fully embrace our identities inside of the game, the identities we built, wearing our own unique visor cortexes and having just that thing that we've been waiting for, and that people have been using this as their profile pictures. They've been getting it printed on t-shirts. It's people have really falling in love with their variants, and they've started creating their own stories and identities around them. And this is the first time we get to use them in game and really start filling out the existence with our own stories as our own variant. Next up, consumable healing items. This is honestly going to be one of the biggest meta changes in the game so far. Weapons have made a big difference between snapshots, but when you're in the proving grounds at the moment, obviously the refiner state is where we're going to be heading next. But when you're in the tower now, or the refiner state, or even the proving ground still, healing stations were fixed locations. The only places you could heal, if you took damage, you had to go to one of those. You had no choice. That's where you were heading. That made them hotspots. People would be hanging around them waiting for you to come, or multiple people would be heading there because it's the only one around and they need to heal as well. And that made it made you play a certain way. You had to be careful around healing stations. It wasn't a simple thing of just pop there, because it was a dangerous area and you had no choice. So you were drawn there. Consumable healing items change that. They change it massively because you don't have to head there anymore. It's going to take a lot of strain off of those areas. And obviously it's going to be a punishment if you didn't plan ahead and bring consumable healing items with you. And again, emphasizing more on the pre-raid preparation. And I love that. You need to think about your armor now. You think about your helmet. You think about your healing items. That's a big change. That's three things we didn't have to think about before. And there is more coming. So after the consumable healings, we've got throwable tactical items. So the only things mentioned were the smoke grenade, but I think it's safe to assume that along with the smoke grenade, we're probably going to get a frag grenade or a semtex or some kind of explosive, just because that's generally the normal thing to happen and to have in a game. This is again going to emphasize on the pre-raid preparation, but it's also going to be changing the flow of how the game goes at the moment, because so far the only danger has been weapons, which are projectile weapons. So if you're behind cover, you're pretty safe. Throwable tactical items change that massively. Now you've got a way of pushing people out of cover and not having to push around yourself. You can set up, throw a grenade or a smoke or something back there and either give yourself cover or push them out of their cover. And that's going to change the flow of the game massively. Fully complete weapons. 6 fully complete weapons and 13 attachments to go with them. This is huge. 6 fully complete weapons. I would hate to say what that is and assume what it is, but I'm hoping that is what I think it is, and that means there are 6 weapons that are fully modeled on their first balance checks, their functionalities sort of like at a good state where it's fully usable, animations are done, and it's fully compatible with all the attachments, which I'm hoping that those 13 attachments are also in that fully complete state where things like scopes and barrels and stocks and things are going to make a real difference. Because Snapshot 4, I used a lot of attachments and I never really felt the difference, but at the same time, a lot of the weapons I was using were still in that very early stage, so I'm not sure how much of a difference I would be able to notice. I'm also pretty trash at PC, so I probably wouldn't notice anyway. Again, more emphasis on that pre-game, that pre-raid preparation, attachments, what weapon you're taking. Is this weapon ideal for your playstyle? And more than anything, it's going to be emphasizing more on the risk/reward side of DEADROP, where taking a weapon in now, a fully finished weapon with fully finished attachments, which are making a huge difference, hopefully. If you've built a weapon that you love to pieces and it's been working for you, you don't want to lose it. You definitely don't want to lose it. You want to get more of them and recreate that, but still losing it's going to be painful. And you have to make a decision before entering the tower if you want to bring that or not. That's a huge change for me, and I can't wait. Finishing off the video, we've got Doc telling us the same date that we've seen in a few places of March 17th, and teasing what I believe is an IRL event in Texas. But the important part here isn't the date, which the date's important. We all want it. We want it as soon as possible, and that's awesome. But that isn't the important part. The important part is where Doc says this.
Because after this, everything changes. And there will be more than just variants dropping in.
this against me is aligning with the letter, with talking about claws collecting chips and claws being non-variants, really tells me that we're going to have some form of open access to non-founders. I wouldn't ever like to swear that that's what's going to happen. Maybe it's just a select group. Maybe it's people who applied and didn't get in and they're going to give them a chance to get in. Or maybe it is just going to be a period of time that it's open access, letting people get a taste for it and then potentially be future founders. I would hate to try and guess, but that's what it says to me. And I think there's a pretty good chance that, considering this is the year of expansion, that we're going to see some new faces. More players in more time zones means fuller lobbies for longer. So those 3 months between snapshots might feel a lot shorter because we're going to be able to play it more and not rely so heavily on the Wednesday night and Saturday night dead drops. I hope you guys enjoy the video. I am loving every snapshot, and honestly, for the first one coming this year, this has reignited my passion, hope and excitement for dead drop, because 2023, the year of expansion, is going to be huge. Our first step into the tower. Hopefully some of you are joining me in there, so please let me know if you enjoyed the video. Maybe drop a little like, I'd appreciate it a lot, and I'll see you guys next time.